Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger, my friends. If you've been following along with this whole crazy fighting game thing, you know these days it's a pretty good time to be a fighting game fan. There's a lot going on right now, and there's a lot to look forward to in the future. Like taking a look at modern, if you will, fighting games. Street Fighter 6 obviously going quite strong. Terry Bogard recently released. At some point early next year, we'll have Mai Shiranui, maybe some more balance changes to give Manon and Honda something to work with, but I digress. But yeah, Street Fighter 6 doing okay for itself. Guilty Gear Strive, been going strong for years and years and years, and what helped sort of kick off this whole fighting game renaissance, if you will, right? Going from a franchise that struggled to sell a couple 100,000 copies to Strive selling millions and millions. More DLC to come, guest character with Cyberpunk, cool stuff. Something like King of Fighters 15, like a game, frankly, where if there was no more support for the game, no one would really begrudge it realistically. But the developers are going the extra mile, as are many developers for many fighting games, and adding yet more characters and another balanced revamp to the game. Really cool stuff. And obviously we got the future to look forward to as well. There's lots of modern things going on with the future. We have stuff like 2XKO. We have Fatal Fury City of the Wolves coming up with, hey, Terry Bogard and Mai Shiranui, who are very much in Street Fighter 6. And funnily enough, the favor's also getting returned as, well, we have Ken and Chun-Li joining Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. It's a new golden era of collaboration, right? Almost as if, say, even a Capcom versus SNK 3 could be possible. So here's the point I'm getting to. There's lots going on. There's a lot of amazing stuff for fighting games, even so much I haven't mentioned, right? But the thing is, they're all 2D fighters. Say you're a big fan of 3D fighters, and I know there's a lot of you out there, right? Okay, hey, Tekken 8, that's awesome. We love Tekken 8. But what else? Well, turns out not much else. If you don't like Tekken 8, tough luck. Like, let's take Street Fighter 6. Say I'm not the biggest fan of Street Fighter 6 or whatever. Terry Bogard came out, and I realized compared to Terry, I'll never be a real man. Okay, fair enough. Accurate enough. So if I'm not the biggest fan of Street Fighter, I can just go play some Mortal Kombat. I can go play some Guilty Gear. I can play some King of Fighters. Maybe I feel like playing some granblue Fantasy vs. Rising. Maybe some Under Night In-Birth 2. Maybe I want to check out, some, maybe not some big budget games, right? Some more indie style games. We have stuff like sci-fi-y, cyberpunk-y, Corrupt video already live on the channel. Or maybe something like Diesel Legacy if I want those 1920s fighting game vibes. Basically spoiled for choice, right? And of course there's many more games I didn't even mention, otherwise I'd be here all day. But say you don't like Tekken 8. Maybe you even love Tekken 8 to begin with, but whatever changed, right? Say you don't like Tekken 8. Where do you go from here? That's still a 3D fighter? Well, the answer is, you don't. Something sort of went wrong along the way, and simply put, Tekken is the only game in town. If you don't care for whatever given 2D fighter, there's a lot more to work with, right? You can find your game. Say even platform fighters. We don't talk about platform fighters as much on the channel, right? But there's always something cooking. Like say Rivals of Aether 2. Out soon. So if you're burnt out on Smash for whatever reason, and Lord knows I know a lot of you gotta be, even on my side on the more traditional fighting game end of things, I certainly always hear a lot of complaints out of the Smash community. There's still, even in platform fighters, the next thing to look forward to, and heck, for Rivals of Aether 2, it's coming out pretty soon too. But for 3D fighters, we used to be spoiled for choice. We had options like, say, Dead or Alive. We had Soul Calibur, another Bandai Namco property. And we even had the granddaddy of them all, Virtua Fighter, the one that started it all. And now we got nothing. We got Tekken 8. That's it. If you love Tekken, great. Awesome. But if you're looking for alternatives and you don't want to learn, say, 2D fighters instead, not as awesome. So how exactly did we get to this point, right? What did happen to 3D fighters? Where did they go? And is there any hope for the future? Well, let's talk about it. So let's talk the core main 3D fighter franchises besides Tekken. Dead or Alive, really good start. Dead or Alive has been very popular over the years. And technically is still going strong today. Because we have Dead or Alive Extreme Venus Vacation Prism, an interactive romantic adventure. You better believe this ain't no fighting game. So the franchise technically persists, but not in the way you want. I was not a happy camper when I saw that get announced. But for Dead or Alive, the fighting game franchise, what happened to Dead or Alive? Why did it kind of fall off a cliff? And the answer is pretty simple. It's because of Dead or Alive 6. Dead or Alive 6 was about as big of a misstep as a game possibly could be when it came to the core gameplay. Coming off of Dead or Alive 5 Last Round, which was the final revision Dead or Alive 5, which in my opinion is one of the best fighting games ever made, Dead or Alive 6 could categorically be listed as nothing other than a straight disappointment. Lots of bad decisions, lots of just unneeded changes to the core systems. You'll see some other people blame, like say the monetization, the costumes always come up, right? The costumes, it's exactly the same how it was in DOA 5, and the costumes did gangbusters. People bought the DLC costumes in droves for DOA 5, so that's not really the issue. Its success is why they chose to go that route in DOA 6, right? Maybe a little bit overboard, but there's a reason why it was a thing to begin with. I've seen also complaints about like Dead or Alive 6 Core Fighters, the free-to-play version, and that didn't really take off, but it did for DOA 5. Like, they got over 10 million downloads for the free version of DOA 5. I know they were very, very happy with that. So, free-to-play and the costume stuff, I know maybe it didn't help DOA 6 in the long run, but they were both wild successes for DOA 5. So that really wasn't it. It's just basically the game. Nobody I know who was a Dead or Alive fan was kind of happy with how the changes were in DOA 6. Like, break hold ruined the whole triangle of, attack, counter, throw, right? Big changes to how the ground game worked, just kind of changes all around that, to me, were not positive changes overall. So, going from Last Round, much smaller roster, the gameplay, frankly, not as good, then also not necessarily positive messaging around the costume stuff and the DLC, kind of a big recipe for disaster all in all. Not one single thing, but put it all together, it just really didn't work out. I don't got exact numbers, but I know 6 did much less than 5 across the board in terms of sales, downloads numbers, whatever have you. It was just frankly an inferior game compared to its predecessor. And game development getting more expensive year over year, you can't really afford a miss, right? Misses are expensive. And basically, because DOA 6 bombed, that is why you're not hearing about DOA 7 anytime soon. Moving on to Soul Calibur and Soul Calibur 6. Dead or Alive 6, bad gameplay design choices? Oh, buddy! Soul Calibur 6 launching with Reversal Edge is one of the most disastrous new mechanics I've ever seen added to a video game. Like, I remember in the marketing cycle before launch, one of the interviews had a developer saying, the point of Reversal Edge is to let people who are not as good beat people who are better than them. That's what you want to hear in a fighting game. Now, to be fair, over the course of the game's life, various patches, things got changed around. The game that it is today, after its final balance patches, is a much, much better game than it was at launch. But initial word of mouth was not that good. Like, there was complaints and they were widespread. And then, well, there's the sales. Official reports have Soul Calibur 6 eking out just barely over 2 million copies for its lifetime. Now, compare that to Tekken 7. Both games were ongoing concerns at the same time. They're both running and getting updates at the same time. Tekken 7's lifetime sales from the official source itself is over 12 million. So it sold 10 million more copies than Soul Calibur 6. So it's no wonder which one Bandai Namco considers a success, right? And then you gotta understand, this is back-to-back issues. Soul Calibur 5 also did not perform well. According to the Bandai Namco official financial reports, it didn't even sell 2 million. So Soul Calibur 6 did do a little bit better, but this is another game where perception was a major issue. Gameplay issues, the roster, oh my god, this is why they don't do new generations. People talk like, oh man, I wish they'd just dump the old characters and put in the new characters. It never works. It didn't work back in the Street Fighter 3 days. It certainly didn't work out here, where we had Patroclus and Pyrrha instead of Sophitia and Cassandra. Remember Leizia instead of Shanghua? Natsu instead of Taki? Like, what were they thinking? Suffice it to say, unpopular choices. And also canonically kind of backed them into the corner because this is set in the further future, so Soul Calibur 6 had to be a reboot of the series. So Soul Calibur 5 was straight up a swing and a miss. Soul Calibur 6, mild at best. Did not set the world on fire in a business where this is a hit-driven business. Unfortunately, it's not just good enough to make your money back, right? You gotta have a big game that sells lots of copies, or to them, it's just not worth making another one. So with two kind of entries of the franchise back to back, that's why there's no Soul Calibur 7. Now, Virtua Fighter. We always talk about Virtua Fighter around here, right? So Virtua Fighter is not as simple as a tale of pure numbers like DOA and Soul Calibur. For one, Virtua Fighter 5, plain base vanilla Virtua Fighter 5, is much older than the most recent entries of DOA and Soul Calibur. Technically, we're going almost 20 years here. The original home version's coming out in 2007. And like numbers-wise, as a purely franchise thing, VF as a franchise has sold just shy of 20 million units, all in all. Like, it does have some numbers behind it. Problem being, if you haven't sold a copy of the game in almost 20 years, well, the sales aren't going to be that great in the last 20 years. But all things considered, especially because VF's traditionally on Sega platforms, at least until the PlayStation 2 era where everybody knew Virtua Fighter 4, sales are good, all things considered. So Virtua Fighter is less a tale of raw numbers, more Sega being Sega, unfortunately. Very famously, there is the tale of internally in Sega, it's less an issue of, oh, we should make Virtua Fighter 6, and more that they're scared to make Virtua Fighter 6. The franchise has a lot of positivity, a lot of love, and nobody wants to be the guy to make the next VF and then screw up. Like, VF 5 Final Showdown is almost a perfect game. How do you improve? Gotta be right place, right time. So, Tekken 7 did gangbusters, did insane numbers. Like, Tekken 7 did Mortal Kombat numbers. Like, you never would think like Tekken or Street Fighter could ever reach Mortal Kombat sales. 12 million for Tekken 7, 15 million for MK11. Like, I guess MK11 still wins, whatever. But the fact that it's even in the running, so of course there's a Tekken 8. And Tekken 8 is not even a year old yet, and it's already sold over 2 million copies, right? And it's going to be around for some years to come. I'm sure they'll get those numbers up there. Maybe not Tekken 7 high, we'll see, but the numbers will be pretty alright. So from the numbers, which is the only metric a business cares about, Tekken 8 easily justifies itself. Whereas some of the other games we've talked about, maybe not. So, that said, is there any hope for some of the other games? And for that, I'm going to give you a yes and a no. For Dead or Alive, based off of what I know and people who I've talked to behind the scenes, I really don't think anything's happening anytime soon. I can't give you hard data points on this because that's just the nature of how this works, but it is my understanding as of at least last year, there was no new Dead or Alive in active development. That could have changed in the last year, I don't know. I'm not privy to that specific info, but that's what I've been told. I would love to be wrong, but I don't think that's wrong, unfortunately. Dead or Alive is very much on ice for the time being, I think. That said, the name's worth too much money, the brand's worth too much money. It'll come back some way, somehow, just not anytime soon. For Soul Calibur, no inside info, but I feel it's much the same here. Soul Calibur will absolutely come back one day. As a brand and a franchise, it is worth too much, right? But it needs to be on ice for a while. Soul Calibur 6 did not do gangbusters. That doesn't engender a lot of positivity on a business front. But once again, the brand, like Soul Calibur, is Soul Calibur, right? You can't not eventually have another Soul Calibur, but maybe not this console generation. Now, for Virtua Fighter, however, there is a lot more positive news. So much of what I've talked about, numbers matter, right? That's just how it works. And we have Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown, which was the remaster of Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown done by RGT Studios, the people who make the Yakuza games. And we do know that Sega was very happy with the numbers of Ultimate Showdown. And it took some doing auto-translating some Japanese websites, but I actually found out the actual number. So Ultimate Showdown has moved over 10 million downloads. This game being digital only, there's no disc, and PlayStation only at that. And yes, the game originally did launch first month on PlayStation Plus, so you could download it for free, but that was kind of the point, right? Reintroduce a franchise that's not been around in a very long time to as many people as possible in this initial outgoing. And 10 million, be it some sold, be it some free, right? That is not nothing. So I can see why they were very happy with those numbers. So we do have that, and of course, can't avoid talking about, we had the leaks. So we had the user called Midori, now known as Ryan from the Bronx, somewhat famed for their Sega/Atlas leaks. And they state basically Virtua Fighter 6 has been in development ever since Ultimate Showdown did good numbers. So it's been in development for some years. And they stated as well that it'll be revealed sometime this year. Not much of the year left, so we'll see if they're correct. There was also some unpleasantness with the leaker, which I'm not going to go into here. It wasn't tied to the validity of their leaks, which as far as I understand on the Sega Atlas front at least is a very high batting record. But they did suffer a bit of a fall from grace. More of a character issue than a leak issue, but well, it is what it is. I'm sure you can Google it. And then we have Seiji Aoki, who is one of the chief producers over at Sega and is very much tied to VF. And Mr. Aoki has been less than subtle over the last few years, doing multiple interviews about the potential future of the Virtua Fighter franchise. Stating things like, if there ever happened to be another Virtua Fighter, we definitely would have rollback netcode. Previously stating that going into the new year, VF is everything, keyword is VF. Putting out trolley posts for Virtua Fighter for the new year, showing exactly 6 character slots, which the main Sega account is very recently getting into themselves, posting this little puzzle here with a Sega with a 6 in it. And no, that's not Persona 6, that would be Atlas's accounts. And besides, they're never going to talk about Persona 6 before Metaphor is coming out anyways. That'd basically just be ruining their own marketing engine. By the way, I played the Metaphor demo, very good, try it out. And there's a million little other hints. We've covered them in other videos in the past. They have not been the most subtle about it. It is to this point, I would say going back almost 4 years ago, when Harada did the Fighter Games developers panels, like, wonder when Sega's showing up here. None too subtle hint then, and Harada, especially almost like every other month, is like talking like, okay, wonder when Virtua Fighter's coming back. It's basically a done deal. Now, unlike that one leaker saying it's going to get announced at the end of this year, I don't know about that. I would love that for be the case for my own mental health, if anything else, because I've been waiting way too long for a new VF. So if it made an appearance at the Game Awards, that'd be fantastic. But it gets to be the point over the years, so many signs, like little hints, interviews, people talking to people, like it's basically gonna happen. Unlike, say, Dead or Alive or Soul Calibur, in the next 2 or 3 years, you'll see something Virtua Fighter related, even if it's not quite out yet. So for 3D fighters as a whole, there is still hope. This won't be a Tekken-only game forever, as far as I'm concerned. And then further down the line, maybe we get our Dead or Alive back, we get our Soul Calibur back, and maybe some other games. Maybe Bloody Roar, of all games, makes a return. Stranger things have happened. Heck, maybe after Mortal Kombat 1, Mortal Kombat 2, which is weird to say, returns to 3D. Who knows? But hopefully going into the future, there is some sort of competition for Tekken. It's not that interesting to watch a race with only one horse in it, right? It's what the people want. It's what Harada himself wants, the guy who won the war, right? Harada looked upon the horizon and wept when there was no more worlds to conquer. Competition in any given space is usually good for the developers themselves, and obviously very good for the consumers. Like, say you don't like Street Fighter 6 for whatever reason, right? Go try out Guilty Gear. Guilty Gear not got your taste? Go try out Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat not doing for you? Try out granblue, right? There's options. And for a 3D fighting game fan, if for whatever reason you're not the fan of where Tekken's going right now, there is no option other than switch genres or, well, just stop playing entirely. The Tekken versus Virtua Fighter wars back in the day, they were some good ones. If you're younger and you didn't experience it, that's a shame. You should have. It was fun to argue. And I look forward to arguing for Virtua Fighter 6 when it returns and its eventual domination and crushing of Tekken 8. But I guess we need a new game before we can do that. So as it stands, maybe a little bit bleak for the genre, the subgenre 3D fighters as a whole, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, at least in my opinion. Game Awards later this year would be a pretty good place to find out, but if not, well, I still think something is coming eventually. That said, though, that is the news for the day. That's what I got for you right now, and that is the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some fighting games and hopefully some 3D fighters.